Okay, everybody put your head down. Anybody see themselves in that? It's like a whole bunch of stuff going on in there. I mean, so how we make assumptions about people, you know. Republicans vote early, or go to bed early. Black people vote late. Yeah. You think that was really, that was just pulling that straw out of the conversation, even though it's comedy? We're going to talk, sister. What else did they say in there?
Women waking up.
Women,
how bad it's going to be.
How what?
How bad it's going to be.
For women. How bad it's going to be for women, yeah. Right. That we don't know how bad it's, yeah. Nobody, you know how bad it's going to be for women, I got you. What else?
Latinos vote left.
Huh?
Didn't I hear something about Latinos voting left?
But look, yeah.
This is the worst thing that's happened to men.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
Everybody's not going to pick their own strawberry.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a whole bunch of truths and assumptions in there. And so even in assumptions, there are some truths. Even in this kind of stereotype, there are some truths in some of that. And then we inflate those stereotypes and make it reality. And so that's why perhaps sometimes we think we need Xanax or six, because we can't handle that truth when it's looking back to, when that mirror needs to reflect back on us, we want to push it back out. So it's a whole, and yeah, that's funny, and that funny is true. So it's like one of my favorite comedians and social commentators, Dick Gregory, used to do. He'd make you laugh, and then he'd punch you with the truth. You're like, dang, I'm glad I laughed first. So this gets us to the racist at home and the revolutionary in the street. I have a friend who says that responsibility, accountability goes to, there are three ways that you can impact that, and that's individual, institution, and systemic. So probably pretty obvious, but I'll just kind of breeze over. Individual is the person, how we look at things. The institution, how corporations look at things, including private corporations, our school institutions, the institution of marriage, so to speak. So it doesn't even have to be this kind of physical thing. What we look at, and then this whole systemic thing. What are systemic racism and the cultures of systems and economic systems, and I mean a whole social systems. All of these different systems that make us all of who we are. So from individual to institution, systemic. So, and I think I was saying this to somebody earlier, but we're going to talk about the individual. That often when we start having this conversation is people want to say, and I think I saw it in one of the videos that Bill wanted me to look at, is that we go to this, well, if you only get education, then it's all right. Samantha, and I hope you don't mind me sharing this, Samantha and I were having this conversation earlier about when this brother said something to her, and so she, just wanted to make him know that, where her education level was. And I told her, you shouldn't have to say that. If it's you just going person to person, unless you're going up for your PhD, you shouldn't care about my education. And yet we do have to have that conversation that I belong here, right? So what does that look like? What does the individual thing look like? Why does it matter that we have to look at the individual instead of all of these other things? Because this is the bulk of it. This one makes up everything else. And so back to my conversation about, that was in 1940, that we're going to have the same conversation in 2040, in 3040, in 4040. And I dare say Jesus, Buddha, and Mother Teresa probably have all had this conversation before. So to me, it sort of starts, here. I don't know who said this, but I think I've been saying it enough that I can just say Robin said it. Y'all find out who said it, just give them credit. That You know, Jesus may be in your blood. We say we're this Christian nation and we believe this, and so Jesus may be in your blood. You may have been saved by the blood, but I'd be gosh darn if what we pass on is our DNA. And so grandpa and grandma's thoughts and attitudes get passed along. And so that's what I mean about being racist at the dinner table, is that we excuse conversation in our circles because it's just grandma or it's just grandpa. Because that's the way it's always been. It's just here. I'm just letting off steam. And it doesn't matter if you're black or white, Latino or gay, straight or Filipino. It doesn't matter. It's we all do it. We're all complicit in this, and that's how it keeps going. So to me, that conversation about Trump being elected, that's not the deal. I ain't gonna talk politics because we'd be here a whole night if y'all hear me talking about politics. That's not the deal. That's a symptom of what we as an individual, of what our mirror has done. What we've said is okay, right? We're gonna talk about how you disagree with me too, so don't worry, don't worry about that. So how does this manifest itself? I'm gonna say this. My father, who I just absolutely love, he's dancing in heaven right now. One of the smartest men besides my fine smart husband that I know. And we grew up country, very country. Hee-haw was our thing. We had ABC, CBS, NBC, and PBS. So hee-haw was it. Who knows gloom, despair, and agony, deep, dark depression, excessive misery. If it wasn't for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all. Gloom, despair, and agony on me. Okay, so y'all ain't playing, y'all playing, y'all know, y'all. So my father was this absolute smart man. He was a African-American scholar, biblical scholar. He was like the grand poobah with the Masons. He was at the White House having dinner, all from this little trailer in Arkansas. This dude was bad, absolutely bad. When I was 12 years old, I say 12 to play with me, I don't even know, I could have been 11, 12 anyway. Preteen, he was talking on the phone to somebody, and he said, "Niggers and flies, I despise, but the more I see niggers, the more I like flies." My daddy was black. I don't know if I told y'all that. So here is this dude who is the epitome. When Black History went from Black History Week to Black History Month, we didn't have to go to the library because we had, but my sister still has it. We had the cabinets with the World Book, still have them up there in 1974, with the World Book in there. Every African American, I got his Bibles at home now. Jews in the Bible, African Americans in the Bible, people with one leg in the Bible, red, black, and white, African Americans and Native Americans, classic people and black people. I mean, every African American book this dude had. You would think Carter G. Woodson was his best friend. And he sits on the phone and says this to whoever was on the other side of his phone. And when I tell you as a preteen, I just looked and I said, I thought we weren't supposed to say that. And I think he gave me that look, like, get away, child. But this was my father, who was the epitome of knowledge. You know, it wasn't, to me, it wasn't African-American history, it was history. We sit around talking about our family history, the land that my family bought in the 1800s, the land where we live, where my sister lives today, that was bought in the 1800s. My grandmother, who just died 103 years old, I mean, on both sides. We got, you know, it was a shock. Niggers and flies I despise. The more I see niggers, the more I like flies. This is my father saying this. And then we go out and we help people in the community. From this little trailer on 48th. He goes to the White House. he goes, he works at a real estate company, he's going to do this, only African American there. And in my little self, I say, I thought we weren't supposed to say that. Did that change the conversation? Oh no, I heard him say it many more times. But that's the sort of thing that gets perpetuated, because what happened is I remembered that 10 years later. Sorry, I couldn't even keep that alive myself. Because I remembered that. And that's what we let in. So it's not just white folks saying this around the table. It's this internalized oppression that African Americans and other people do. We do it to each other. White people call white people trailer trash. Hispanic people call others, and other people call them spics. And what we call, I was in Chicago, and so I was like, oh my God, I was looking at we were just talking, the University of Chicago, and what's the Chicago Museum? It's just a museum of art, and they have all this modern art and all of this stuff like this. And I called one of my sisters and I said, oh my God, I just got the best culture dog. She said, you went to Jewtown? No, she didn't. I'm sorry. She didn't say Jewtown. She said Hymietown. Hymietown. My sister's black. I just want yeah, get that. Yeah. And then, well, no, but then, so it was Hymietown, and then she asked me. I was saying something, and back to that same thing. Did you Jew them? So this kind of marked it down. So we do this and we excuse it because it's okay, right? So we say it's okay by our we don't challenge, we don't say that's not right or whatever. We don't do this. And so I am not the only one that happens in families. And it doesn't excuse what my family does. It doesn't excuse it when I do it at home. Right? If I make an assumption about somebody and I put it on a whole class of people,